Welcome back, everyone. Sorry about that. I got cut off in about three-quarters of the way through my sentence. So basically, I wanted just to end that with basically he uses many different ways to get your worship. Satan does, and he's not going to come out like the guy said in part one. He's not going to come out and say, "Hey, I'm Satan, worship me." He's going to use superheroes. He's going to use different false titles of other pagan deities that we thought were titles and names of the Father and the Son. He's going to use your own parents, your own friends to put before the Father and Son. He's going to use many different ways to get idols into your life. Sports, media, movies. I mean, so many different ways. But anyway, that's the end of my tangent there. But let's go back to Stephen Dollins, and you're going to hear more from this guy. Again, keep in mind, this guy used to be on the evil side. Just keep that in mind. So this guy knows what he's talking about.
He was a high priest.
Yep. According to his own testimony, which you can look up on YouTube, Stephen Dollins talks about in another video that before he came to the Messiah, Yahusha and Yahuwah, that he was a high priest under Anton LaVey. And he actually came to know Yahusha basically he didn't want to even come to know Yahusha. He only came to this pastor to try to convert him to Satanism, and it backfired on him. And he actually became a believer from that. So Yahuwah used it against him, and he actually, at that point in time, he broke down, and the pastor, pretty much helped him out and, got him into reading the Bible, and now he's a Baptist minister. So this guy knows what he's talking about.
Scotland, Ireland, over in those regions. And the Celts were a peculiar people. They were a very peculiar people because they worshiped many different gods and goddesses. And so we have to look at the origin by going back to the Celtic religion and their beliefs. And some of the beliefs were they believed in the power of magic, and they worshiped many different gods, and they believed in the spirits of the dead returning. And they were a fierce people who lived in fear of the reigning priests of that time called the Druids. Now you have to understand something. These people are so afraid of the Druids, because that's the religious priests, they are so afraid of them that they will give their lives if the Druids tell them to. That's how much they fear them. They are very ritualistic. They practice witchcraft. They practice seeing, looking into the future, spells, and they look to omens to tell them their future. And these priests were also known as the mighty men of oak, because they carried oak staffs, and they believed that these staffs contained magical powers that they could call on at will. And they practiced human sacrifice as homage to their gods in return for favors that year. That's the Yule. Remember, we talked about Christmas time and how the Yule was whether or not the gods that had been, or the sacrifices that had been made on Samhain had been accepted or not. And these sacrifices were made on their most celebrated day called Samhain. And Samhain is a night when spirits of the dead rose from their graves and walked the land. And they were so afraid of these things walking around. And when you come back as a dead person, you're kind of decayed and everything, so you don't look like you just went to the salon. Yeah. You come back, you're weird looking, you're scary looking. And so in order to trick them, what they decided to do was to dress like them. Now, if spirits come back, not only they were your friends in the flesh, they'll still be your friends in the spirit. If they were your enemies in the flesh, they're still going to come back and try to get revenge. So they're also your enemies in the spirit. And to protect themselves from all these vengeful spirits, what they would do would be to don costumes and try to look like them in order to trick them by making them blend in. And that's where we get the custom of the Halloween costume. The Celts would dress up in order to trick these spirits into thinking that, oh, I'm one of you, don't harm me. And that's the premise of the Halloween costume. And they would dress up in grotesque costumes. I mean, they would try to look like these beings, like these demonic spirits. Now, the origin of trick-or-treat. Kids, I want you to listen to me very carefully. As I told you before, I don't sugarcoat anything. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Here's where trick-or-treat comes from. These priests, these Druid priests on Samhain, on the night of Samhain, would go across the countryside, and they would demand a sacrifice be made. And they would ask for the youngest child of the household, or of that manor, to be placed in chains on a post outside the house. And they would pass over the land that night, and if the sacrifice was young enough and innocent enough and acceptable, then they would carve grotesque face in a turnip, not a pumpkin. Not a pumpkin. Because see, over in Ireland, the turnips are still the most widely used vegetable. Not the pumpkin. It didn't go to a pumpkin until it came to the United States. They would carve a grotesque face in this turnip and set it on the porch of that house. And that was to symbolize to these spirits that were roaming around that night that the sacrifice had been made. And if the sacrifice wasn't given, if the father of the house stood up against these Druid priests and said, I'm not giving you my youngest, I'm not giving you my daughter, I'm not giving you my son, then they would draw a pentagram in goat's blood, the five-pointed star. They would draw it on the porch, front door of that home. And someone in that home would die that night. Now, I'm not saying that demons went in and killed them. I'm not saying that the Druids snuck back in and killed them. But remember, these people are so afraid of these people that most of them died out of fear. Literally died out of fear. And this is where trick-or-treat comes from. It has nothing to do with door-to-door seeking candy. It has nothing to do with walking up to someone and say trick-or-treat. It has to do with child sacrifice. You know, this is a time when kids need to learn, children need to learn how to evangelize these things. My daughter, who's 8 years old, can go to a school and she can tell any classmate in that school why Halloween shouldn't be celebrated. She knows it. She's very sensitive in the spirit. She's also heard Daddy talk about it, and she remembered everything. And she will evangelize. I've heard her talk to other kids about it. But peer pressure is a tough thing. And it's hard. It's hard to tell your child, well, you know, I don't want you dressing up like them. I don't want you wearing what they're wearing. I don't want you going out that night. Because, see, the kids will make fun of them for not doing it. Okay? So, as children, they need to learn how to evangelize the truth. Because, see, people don't want to hear the truth. In the time that I started my ministering, and God put me on the path to minister and expose these things, I found that the one truth was that people don't want to hear the truth. They'd rather not know, because then they're not accountable. You see, once you've heard the truth, now you're accountable for that truth and what you do with it. Now, what you're seeing here, these are modern day Druids, and they're standing at a place called Stonehenge in England. Now, they still do not know what Stonehenge is, what the true purpose of it is. They think that it has something to do with astronomy, the stars and the planets, and also seasons and times. And they say it's a huge clock, but nobody really knows. However, they do know that sacrifices were made on those grounds by the Druids. And these are modern day Druids. And I'm sure the authorities don't look too good on them doing any sacrifices. But here they are assembled, and you see they're in a circle. And what they do, these are the priests here holding those twigs. See that? Remember we talked about the mistletoe being given out to the people, believing that it was a powerful tool to do away with evil spirits. And what they do is they assemble there on Halloween night, and they believe that energies come down from the universe, travel into those stones, and are reflected. And in the center of that is a huge energy that they can tap. Whoa, wait a minute. Didn't we see that on that UN flag? The exact same thing with the people associated in a symbol, in a circle, assembled, and then inside of that was the energy source? And every year from September through November 1st, this tradition of the offering of sacrifices still continues. And this is why you have child abductions and school shootings. Now, I want to read to you something that...
If you wanted to pause it for a second, this is a depiction of what most likely is Saturn, L, Kronos. So anyone that's interested, that's what this is right here. So this is what they sacrifice the children to, and this is another deity that Satan steals Yahuwah's worship from. So that's why he's showing that on the slide. This is to represent Father Time. He's also known as in mainstream Christianity. So I just wanted to explain that.
Came across to me today. And this is from Fox News, and it says, hunt underway in Chicago for a creepy clown who stalks children. And it says, parents on Chicago's South Side are on the edge after reports of a man dressed as a clown has tried to lure several children into his van. The creepy clown, who has been spotted 4 times in the past week on the city's west and south sides, wears a wig and full face paint and carries balloons when he approaches children. And area schools are on the alert, and some have even sent letters home to parents telling them to warn their children about talking to strangers. Here is an Ohio man. Burning cross was just a Halloween decoration. In Canton, Ohio, a Canton man accused of burning a cross in front of his home says he was arrested in a misunderstanding over his Halloween decorations. And it says that he wanted to make his annual yard display more authentic and set fire to the T-shaped wooden stand that holds up his scarecrow so it would look more weathered. Now, these people are so apt at abducting a child that all it takes, parents, is for you to turn your head just one time. You can be in a mall, you can be on your front porch and leave your child on the front porch, go in to answer the phone or go in to get something, come back out, and your son or daughter is gone. They usually use black vans. They paint the windows so you can't see in. And they will roll up, and I mean, there's 3 to 4 people in these vans, and they can abduct a child before you know what's happened. And it makes my blood cringe whenever I see an Amber Alert on the TV during this time. It's because I know that, remember, Mabon is the gathering of sacrifices. It's the time when sacrifices are gathered for Samhain. And that's why you have school shootings during this time, more than any other time. It's a time of sacrifice. The kids at Columbine watched a video game called Doom, day in and day out, where you are attacked by zombie creatures. And if they bite you, you begin to get this infection, and you become one of them. And so you go around and you start shooting these creatures. Yeah, in the next video that I'm planning to do, I'm going to show a screen of a video game called Kindergarten Killer, where you are a disgruntled bus driver at a school, and you begin to take a gun and you go from room to room shooting school children. Video game. It's still a time of sacrifice. What is the hidden agenda of Halloween? This is it. To fascinate, lure, and captivate our children to desire to be something other than themselves. That's the agenda. And you see, it works. Because you have people like Harry Potter and some of those things that lure kids to want to become witches, want to become wizards. You want to have a special demon, little demon with you. The shape-shifting demon with you, as in the Golden Compass. It gives them a chance to be something they're not. They can be something totally different. And I'll tell you what, I've seen kids dress up, and as soon as that costume goes on, they're right in character. It's almost like their personality changes. In the last 3 to 4 years, I watched an interest and obsession with magic and all forms of occult be on the rise. And what stunned me was that the largest group had once been school children, but now was being outnumbered by adults. And I thought it was kind of ironic because when I was on the tour on the Under the Spell of Harry Potter, when I was on that tour, God managed to put me on a plane, and never failed. There would be one adult or two adults on that plane reading Harry Potter books. And it was a great time to minister, but it just stunned me because it dawned on me that it's not the kids, because the kids don't have the money to go out and buy these almost $50 books. It's the parents. It's the adults that go out and get it for them. And the more they begin to read it to their children, the more they get into the story, now they've got to find the next book so that they can find out what happened. And now they get wrapped up in it. And even Christians find themselves amazed and fascinated by the occult. Even Christians. It's all part of the strategy. After all, we've been told by our prominent church leaders. I remember when Chuck Colson came out and he said, we've got to embrace all religions. And he's not the only one that said that. And we've got to realize that witchcraft and Satanism are a religion. And they're a protected religion. That means if they want to open up a satanic church right next door to you, legally there's nothing you can do about it. Because they're protected. On the outside, these practices appear to be fun, and they're somewhat innocent, but the Lord doesn't see it that way. And he speaks of those things that he hates and he detests in Deuteronomy 18. And even the media has grasped onto this. Now, I wonder if some of you have seen some of these. These are programs that are on television now. One of them is called Ghost Hunters. And these are plumbers by day and ghost hunters by night. And what they do, it's on the Sci-Fi Channel, and what they do is they go into places that are reported to be haunted, and people see apparitions in the house, or they see things moving around, or they've had attacks go on. And so what these guys do is they go in and they do what's called electronic voice projection, and you can't hear the spirit speak to you. In other words, a ghost can't speak to you where you can audibly hear him, but he can talk on a tape recorder. And so what they do is they take this special tape recorder and they put it on a table in that house, and supposedly the spirit speaks to them on this tape recorder. So when they play it back, they hear the voice of the spirit speaking. Another one is Paranormal State, and these are college students that have formed a paranormal investigation team. And what they do, they don't just go out looking for ghosts, they go out looking for demons. There was one episode where there was an 8-year-old boy, and he was being attacked. I mean, literally attacked, being thrown against the wall, being scratched, being literally attacked physically by something in the house. And so they went into this house, and they played the Ouija board, and they contacted the spirit, and the spirit attacked the boy, and you saw him fall off of a chair, and he grabbed his stomach, and they opened up his shirt, and there were 4 scratches across his stomach. Now, ghosts don't do that. That's not the spirit of Uncle Bob or Aunt Lucy, okay? That's a demonic spirit. That's a demonic attack. There's most haunted places, haunted America. Oh, yeah, there's even Montel featuring a woman called Sylvia Brown. And Sylvia, good old Sylvia, she's a psychic, you know. What she does is she talks to these people, and she sees dead people, okay? And they're all over the place. They're all around you. And she talks to them, and they talk to her. And so, you know, you can find out where Uncle Bob kept the inheritance or hid, you know, your money, you know, type of thing. And so she tells them, well, this is just Uncle Bill, and he's mad because you moved the piano from the family room to the playroom, and if you'll move the piano back, he says that he'll stop all this attacks and everything will be okay. And so they do it. And so then all of a sudden the spirit stuff stops, and now they're happy, and they're you know what they've done? They've just given that spirit license to be there. Instead of going in and casting it out, they told it it's welcome, and it will stay there. And the elements of this satanic ceremony called Halloween is fear. See, people like to be afraid. It's the thrill of the rush. That's why you get on a big roller coaster and you're going down that roller coaster and you do the most stupid thing, I think, is you stand up or you throw your hands up in the air while you're getting ready to go down. You know, it's the thrill of the rush. It's that rush of fear, that adrenaline rush that we all search for. That's why your teenagers go to those slasher movies where they're killing teenagers by the droves. And they're slicing them up and they're mutilating them. And it's the kind of thing that if you can sit there with your girlfriend and not get scared, not cringe or jump, but she's over there just literally going off, then you're the man. Okay? So it's an element of fear, because see, fear will grip you faster than any other emotion. And it will capture you. Some of the aspects of Halloween are ghosts, ghouls, witches, devils, haunted houses, monsters, and what the police call Hell Night. And any police officer or sheriff's officer, deputy, will tell you what Hell Night's all about. So let's look at some of these things. Let's first look at ghosts and ghouls. Because what they say is that ghosts are the disembodied apparitions, and they are your dead aunt or uncle or father or mother's spirit that is now coming back and visiting you, or visiting someone in the house. Or it's a spirit that doesn't want to go into the afterlife, and so now they're trapped in this house and they just want to stay there. That's what a ghost is. What really is a ghost? Well, here's a question. If a ghost is an apparition, what they call ectoplasm, and you can't touch it, okay? You can't literally physically reach out and touch it, because you've seen, when they have the apparition, somebody will try to touch something and there's nothing there, it's just air. If you can't touch it, how can they touch you? And you know that there's a scripture in the Bible in 1 Samuel that says that the dead know nothing. So if the dead know nothing, why are you trying to talk to them? Why are you trying to reach out and touch them anyway? You're forbidden to. Another scripture in Hebrews 9:27 says, "And it is appointed unto man once to die, and after this they keep coming back." Or they just roam around the earth. Or their spirit is trapped here. No. But after this, the judgment. There is no roaming around. There is no second chance. Ghosts are what we call familiar spirits. They are demonic spirits that have been around you 24/7, or around the person that you're trying to contact through a Ouija board or going through a seance 24/7. And they know everything about you and about anyone else. And they will communicate back and forth to each other. And that's how they know so much. And that's how they can answer all your questions. And now you think it's that person that you're really trying to contact, because nobody else would know what that spirit was telling you, unless it was really them. Well, trick or treat. Ghouls. These are beings that are half dead, half alive. We call them zombies. Okay? Or people that just had a bad day at the doctor's office. And these things are grotesque, and they feed on human flesh. And again, these are the kind of movies that our young people go to. They get that thrill of watching these things, seeing other people being slaughtered, mutilated. Witchcraft. We look at witchcraft, and sometimes parents tell their kids, "Oh, honey, that's just something on TV. That's just something out of the Wizard of Oz. You don't really have to worry about that." Or there's a good witch and a bad witch. You always notice that in the stories there's a good witch, but then there's a bad witch. Well, the Bible says the only good witch is a dead witch. So, you have to start giving your children the answers that they deserve to have, which is the truth. And witches actually cast spells, and they are primarily, traditionally, and exclusively of the female gender. Very rarely is a male ever allowed into a coven. And these witches will meet, and they will do what is necessary to promote themselves. Whether it's going out and casting a spell on another girl, or going out and casting a spell on an ex-boyfriend that dropped you, those sort of things. Young women by the hundreds flock into bookstores around the world. They're seeking to tap into that secret magical power that will bring them their heart's desire at their command. And there was a book out years ago called Teen Witch, written by a witch named Ravenwolf. And in Teen Witch, it appealed to teenage girls to want to get into witchcraft, want to study witchcraft. Because, see, it could tell you how to get if a woman had a boyfriend that you wanted, it told how to put a spell on him to make him leave her and go to you. It also told you how to get the A's on the school test, how to rule the mind of the teachers so that they would give you good grades, so that they would pass you even though you were failing. All kinds of things like that. And that appeals to teenagers because they want things and they want it now. They don't want to wait. And so Teen Witch was one of the best-selling books on the market at that time. Make no mistake about it, witches are very real. They practice and they use for what's called forbidden magic or occult. And they use potions and they use charms and they use spell casting. Devils are fallen angels. They're now no longer angelic status. When they fell from...
Yeah, just a disclaimer, we don't agree with exactly everything this guy's teaching theology-wise. I don't believe devils are fallen angels. Devils are another name for demons. If you look at the Greek New Testament, it's the same word. So I would disagree. Devils are not fallen angels. They're demonic spirits. They're the spirits of the giants.
Right.
So, the way you can figure this out is go to Paul's letters where it says, what's the verse I'm thinking about right now? The nations sacrifice what they sacrifice to idols, they sacrifice to demons. Some translations will actually say devils. So it's the same thing. So I would disagree with him. That's just a mainstream Christianity false doctrine. They combine fallen angels with demonic spirits. They don't understand the difference.
From heaven, they lost their angelic authority. They're still able to operate in the spiritual realm, but they can also operate in the physical realm. And they're referred to as devils. Nothing more than fallen angels. Haunted houses. We glorify these things. Sometimes the city puts on a haunted house. Some good organizations, well-meaning organizations, will sponsor what's called a haunted house. And these things bring big bucks in, millions throughout the year, throughout this time of the year. Because people want to get scared. They want to be afraid. And so what they will do will be to go into these houses, and there'll be actors or people that have been given instructions on how to become a monster, and they will dress up like these characters and these ghouls and these goblins and these devils and these witches, and they will go into these houses, and when you're walking through a room, they'll jump out at you, or they'll pop up and they'll try to grab onto you. And it's all the element of fear, because not only will you go through the house, you'll also turn around and you'll go back through it again, because once you've seen it now you know what to expect, so now you go through it. And what makes a house haunted? Well, first of all, they say it's inhabited by spirits of the dead. In other words, somebody doesn't want to leave the place. In some cases, violent demonic attacks occur. Well, what brings them? What makes a house haunted? Well, several things. An evil deed, a murder, abuse, any kind of abuse. Doesn't have to be physical abuse. It can be verbal abuse. That's why, brothers and sisters, as Christians, we've got to be careful the words we speak in our homes, because we can bring forth curses or blessings. Torture, and because they've been summoned to be there. In other words, somebody opened up a book and called forth a demonic spirit, just, experimenting. Or they played a Ouija board and they contacted a spirit. Or they played with tarot cards, or they played with crystal balls. Those things will attract...
If you want, you can watch the rest of this. As I upload our study from today, I will be putting this link for this video in the description. You can watch the rest of this, but I want to transition a little bit and show the viewers and listeners another one that Jim Staley for Passion and for Truth Ministries did a video about Halloween a couple of years ago, which he attacks it from more a historical standpoint and gives you more of the origin than this guy does. So he kind of does it in a different way. So.
All right, well, let's begin tonight. I felt like I needed to put a pause on the End of the Age series and hit something that's extremely relevant, very controversial within Christianity today. I put a post on Facebook this afternoon, or a post was put on Facebook this afternoon about me doing this teaching tonight. And scores of comments and dialogue and debate are all over the place. Christians saying, I think there's nothing wrong with keeping Halloween. Other ones saying, no, we shouldn't keep it on Halloween. And we could do it, but here's how you need to do it, and everything in between. And so there's definitely not a lot of clarity on this subject just by the comments that were placed today on Facebook. So tonight I'm going to spend the rest of the evening in this teaching going through and unpacking where Halloween came from. Should Christians and should believers celebrate this holiday? If we should celebrate this holiday, how do we celebrate this holiday? Should we have an alternative to this holiday? So on and so forth. So we're going to answer all of those questions and more. And in PFT fashion, we're going to dig back into real history, pull out facts. We're not going to pull out opinions. We're not going to pull out church-run facts, rewriting history. We're going to go all the way back thousands of years, and we're going to discover where the roots of Halloween came from. Are you ready? All right, let's dig in. Today, it is the second most popular holiday next to Christmas. Can you believe that? And you should believe that, because when you walk into the stores in August, there are Halloween costumes and paraphernalia starting to be put up in Walmarts and in grocery stores and so on and so forth. They're rearranging aisles to make room for all of that stuff that people buy. It is the second most popular holiday. Over $15 billion will be spent around around Halloween. $15 billion is going to be spent this year on Halloween. Get this, over 400 million of that is going to be spent on pets getting costumes. That's how ridiculous it is today. People are now getting costumes for their pets. You can't leave the pet out of the equation, so 400 million will be spent on pet costumes alone. Listen, more and more Christians are engaging in Halloween and being encouraged to do so by their pastors, bishops, priests, elders, and even some of the most prominent Christian leaders in America. Recently,
to add to that, you got a worship contemporary Christian worship group, Hillsong. I'm pretty sure most people have heard of them, Hillsong United, encouraging Christians to celebrate Halloween. It just happened this year. So more and more and more and more mainstream Christianity is encouraging believers that are ignorant and don't know about this stuff we're presenting today to, it's okay, celebrate it, take it back for Yahuwah, take it back for Messiah. Yeah, there's no biblical precedent for that. So just be careful out there, people that listen to Hillsong United's music and might be affiliated with the Hillsong Church. They're one of the ministries out there that's telling people to celebrate Halloween. So anyway,
an article was given by one of the most popular Christian actors in America today, interviewed in the Huffington Post as of this week, coming out and saying that Christians should have the largest block parties on the planet, in America, on Halloween. Here's what he had to say. This comes directly from the Christian Post, one of the largest Christian newspapers online. Quote, early on, Christians would dress up in costumes as the devil, ghosts, goblins, and witches, precisely to make the point that those things were defeated and overthrown by the resurrected Jesus Christ. You should have the biggest party on your block, he told CP, Christian Post. Halloween gives you the opportunity to show how Christians celebrate the day that death was defeated, and you can give them gospel tracts and tell the story of how every ghost, goblin, witch, and demon was trounced the day that Jesus rose from the grave. Clearly, no Christians ought to be glorifying death because death was defeated, and that was the point of All Hallows Eve. Now, at a cursory view, this might even inspire some of you. It looks good. It sounds good. It sounds spiritual. But what I want to do as a historian is I want to go back and I want to unpack these historical statements that he just made and make sure that they're accurate. Because when you say that early on Christians would dress up in costumes, well, how early are you talking? How early are you talking about in the 70s? Or 70 AD. There is a big difference. And so there is a connotation that comes from this. There's an aroma that comes from these quotes that make you feel like he's talking about early Christians. When I say early Christians, I am clearly talking about first century Christians. Most Christians, when they read this, would automatically put that mindset in. So there is, in a way, a very deceiving, even though I believe it's completely unintentional by the one who made this statement, but there is a deceiving color that comes from this. That, listen, early Christians dressed up like ghosts and goblins, and the point and the purpose of doing that was to mock them. So I took the liberty upon myself to go back in history, 100 year by 100 year, millennium by millennium, all the way back thousands of years to find out where these traditions came from, to find out that is this statement true? Did anyone at any time outside of modern history ever dress up to mock demons? We're going to discover that. And then lastly, I highlighted this one quote. It was the point of All Hallows Eve was to show that Jesus rose from the dead, and the point was to show that he had victory over death. Let's discover if All Hallows Eve, which eventually evolved into the term Halloween, if that really was an accurate statement. Did it really start out, and is the point and purpose of All Hallows Eve to glorify life? Let's dig in.
All right. Hold on.
It's not pronounced.
All right, because we're about to get cut off. We're going to do one more part, just get through some of the history that he's talking about here, because he gives some important facts here. Shoshana is not unmuted. She's actually muted because she had, I think, yeah. Hold on. So we're going to be right back. We're about to get cut off though. So stay tuned for the last part. We're going to show a little bit more of his video, and then we'll close out the study for the day. All right, so please stay tuned. Thank you for joining us. Shalom.
Shalom.